step. A lot easier, and that's worked out well. We've checked them, they've checked them, so that's worked out well, and that agreement's worked out very well. So as I've enclosed in the board's packet, there are several other condominiums that we have waived first aid and CPR from somebody sitting right there. If it's more of an active motel, we want to make sure somebody's on the property. But the condominiums is just a little bit different because there's nobody there and somebody comes home late at work and they want to take their own swim at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. They would like to be able to go there without having it staffed for, 12, 14 hours. It's worked out. He'll go over what rules they're going to have and how they're going to try to maintain it and keep it locked when people aren't in there. We've talked about this with them for several months and have finally said they're ready for the meeting now so they can bring it up to the association and get ready for the upcoming summer. But the rest of the pool inspections have been fine over the years. So that's the general background that I'll turn over to you.
Yeah, just introduce yourselves for the record, that's all.
Sure. My name is Frank Pedro, and I'm a trustee. I own units 4 and 5 and occupy both of them in the association.
I'm Christine Fitzsimmons. I am unit owner number 17, and I am a trustee.
Okay,
And I'm Paul Barron, the property manager.
great, okay.
We have had, for the last 20 years, we've had trustees, but we've also had the same pool attendants who also have, in the last 5 years, filled in and worked as managers of sorts, taking care of certain items, including the pool. They have decided to retire. They'll no longer be, I don't know if they're going to be coming back to the Cape, but they're no longer going to be working for us. So all what we're doing now is an outgrowth. We wanted, as owners, the ability to go out and take a swim in a pool. If we felt like going in at 6, we probably wouldn't because the chiggers come out at that point and would chase us out anyway. But if we wanted to go in early in the morning with someone with us, then it would be incumbent upon us to make sure that our regulations were set up and that our pool safety rules were in place. So borrowing a set of pool regulations that were already established from, where did we grab these from?
Debs Hill.
Debs Hill condominium, and did a little work on them and tried to make certain there's enough strings attached and that there is an awareness of what each individual owner's responsibility is towards using the pool. So there's a sign-off and a requirement of a sign-off by each of the, if someone should rent their unit, that there be a sign-off of their guests to make certain that they know that they have a responsibility to take care of their children, to take care of the facility, and we just need to know that they understand. And each owner needs to understand it will not receive a key to get into the pool facility by themselves unless there is unless they've signed off. We've often thought that we've had a pool attendant for all these years because the nature of the complex has changed greatly. At one time, it was a motel. It was created originally as a motel. Then it turned into, in the last few years, motel residence, and now it's strictly townhouse. We don't have that many rentals. There are only a couple of the unit owners who actually rent their units out for a limited amount of time per year. I don't rent my unit.
I don't rent my
Christine doesn't rent hers. Most of the people who are there now do not rent their owner-occupied. Again, seasonal owner-occupied. We can only be, well, Christine's one of the lucky folks can be there 12 months out of the year. The rest of us can only be there for 10. So it behooves us to believe that if we need to have a pool attendant for short periods of time, that there might be lots of children around. And we've got records that go back probably at least 5 years, and we're going to take a look at those in the spring and see when we need to have someone sitting there to help out and make sure that there's security for the use of the facility. Paul's new. We've just hired him. We decided that there was just no way that as trustees who aren't here all the time, and we didn't want to drop it all on Christine's back, that she could run the whole place by herself. And our other folks were in and out, so it was just easier and we thought it was a really good decision to have a local manager so we can know what's going on 12 months out of the year. Plus, with Paul comes our pool attendant, our pool CPO, who'd be Viola, I believe.
Viola, yeah.
Viola is going to handle our pool for us. And we are more than open to do what is necessary to make sure that this works. Don't know if there's,
How many units do you have?
not 18.
18.
If you count the lighthouse, it's 19, but it's not occupiable right now.
What are your concerns?
As an owner, I just want to make sure that everyone who uses the facility understands the responsibilities that they have. And we want to make certain that the pool is safe. We don't want to have accidents, we don't want to have problems. But we do, as an owner, I want to have access to the pool when I feel like having access. I mean, I'm not going to swim by myself, I'm going to have somebody there, but that's one of our rules that we built in. We also want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, checking the chemicals 4 times a day and making certain that the pool is safe and sanitary and we don't have any issues. And we want to comply with all the requirements of the town. So,
Who are you going to have testing the pool 4 times a day?
we're going to set up a schedule of individuals who are there, and we're going to follow through on that basis. And we'll train them how to do it. 2 of our trustees have owned pools in the past, and they understand.
But you also have a certified pool operator that oversees that has a state certificate.
Yes.
Okay,
That will be Viola,
Viola Pools.
yeah. They, as you know, they do Debsil, so
And how often would he be on site?
probably once a week.
Once a week.
Once a week.
Once a
they'll
week,
come,
the certified state person or
I
licensed
understand.
person, but then
Yeah.
they can do it themselves,
Right.
which
yeah. Right.
is similar to Mo. So the people that are also doing it 4 times per day will also make sure the gate is locked. The keys are being used appropriately, so you also have somebody else watching the pool
Right.
during that.
We've been debating back and forth. I think we're going to leave the pool gate in the locked position. Right now, it's when there's an attendant there, it's been open, and you can uncline, there's a specialty lock, as most fences require, to allow access, not by young kids, but by adults. And some adults can't handle that lock either. But I think we're probably going to leave it locked 24/7. And you have access by key to get in. If you don't have a key, you don't get in. And that's subject to the rest of the trustees voting on it. But that was the last conversation we had. We want to make sure we get through this phase before we start to get everybody all upset.
Yeah. And I know you made a note about the key, but it probably should be stamped "Do Not Duplicate" on it.
I'll get it set up so that
We'll
it
just
can't
add
be
that to your letter. Some of the keys say, so makes it,
Right.
and then you want to just mention about renters, how that handles if one of the units is rented, if the limited those people using a key to use the pool without guests?
The owner will be responsible to have a copy of this agreement signed by his tenant, if he has a tenant. I hate to call them tenants, but if he has a tenant or a guest, they'll be responsible to get this signed. And it will be based on, after that signature, that they get to use the key to the pool, which will be his key or her key, as the case may be.
So each
there
unit
will be
gets one,
extra-
each unit will get one key?
One key.
So if you're renting and you're off Cape, how do you handle the key then? In other words, how does-
That's usually what normally happens to those folks who are renting who have rented their units. They greet the people who are coming in, and then they collect, and then they go in and inspect at the end at the time period. So they'll hand them a key, get the contract signed, I assume collect their money. I don't know, I don't do that end of things. Or they'll arrange to have somebody take care of it for them. But there'll only be one key per unit, so if the owner of that unit ends up walking away with his key, then he has somebody in there, then they don't have a key to get in, period. I mean, that's gonna, it's very, the responsibility, as we've thought through this, is strictly individual by each unit owner. So it's upon them to take care of the situation. If we have a lifeguard there, or if we have a pool attendant there, then it'll be a different story. But in time periods that we don't, like every other place, we're not a public accommodation or hotel, that you have to be open all the time. But
So do you have an annual condo association meeting in the spring that you can go over this with everybody? Or
yes,
they probably know this is going on now, but you can kind of formalize it, let them know they need to sign documents and
exactly.
watch their renters. And I did like how you said if it's a rental and they're registered appropriately with the town. I think that helps. We like to see that. That's good.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. You mentioned boaters in here. You want to just explain to the board the boaters using the docks?
We have, each owner has the benefit of a dock that we can use. And we have a parking area for boaters who can park in that area. And there's a tendency of some individuals to allow others to come off their docks. If they're not a tenant and they're not or not an owner, and they're using someone else's boat, they're not allowed to use the facility, period. We've always had it restricted to, the pool restricted to owners and the owner's guests or the owner's tenants.
Does that answer your question?
So who enforces that?
It's actually been for years, the enforcement, well, if they don't have a key, they're not going to get in, number one. Number two, we've always had a pool attendant they were there from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and probably 70% of the time, they were sitting there by themselves, cooking in the sun, so it got to be ridiculous as far as we were concerned. I mean, we were willing to continue it, but since they decided they didn't want to do it anymore, this was a good time to change.
So you feel like all 18 owners will be willing to sign this? They'll vote for it?
I believe there won't be a problem. This is actually something the trustees can put through in effect, so I don't think there'll be no issues, especially if they think they can go in the pool when they feel like taking a swim. And from those that I've talked to already, and I probably have talked to about half of the owners, no one has had a problem with this. They think it's a great idea.
Mr. Barron, how has this worked at Deb's Hill?
It works perfectly. Each unit has a key. The guests are responsible for, each unit owner is responsible for their guests who uses that. We have a sign-in sheet, so we know who's using the pool. And it should work in the same fashion as how they want to deal with it. We have volunteers who test the pool 4 times a day as required, and our CPO comes twice a week, so.
I have a question. So you said each unit will get one key, right?
Correct.
So the verbiage, I think, in this is a little unclear, where it says each unit owner and their immediate family will be entitled to one key. The way I read that was each would be the owner and their immediate family would each get a key. That's kind of how I read that. But
No,
you're saying
it's-
that's not accurate?
That's not, there was a question brought to me when we wrote this up that said, there was a question of whether the family would be able to use, the family of an owner would be able to use it. And I said, well, of course, they're your family. They're owners.
Right.
When you think
No,
about
I
it.
understand.
So,
But it's still
therefore,
just one key per
There's
unit.
still only going to be one key per unit.
Okay.
If I'm living there, how will I know Thursday I'm supposed to check the pool and do the chemicals that day?
We're going to have a sign-up sheet.
Yes.
And we'll adhere to that. There's always going to be someone, during the summer, there are 3 trustees that are going to be there probably 90% of the time.
Okay.
So whoever sets up when the list is set up, it'll be maintained that way. There'll be a backup.
So that's one area that the trustees would monitor to make sure that people are checking off their work. They did say, oh, I got relatives, I'm skipping a couple of tests that day. So that's something that you trustees need to watch. And then Viola, that checks it once a week, he'll be checking the log. But as we do an inspection from the health department standpoint, if we check the log each time. If we notice that it's not being done 4 times a day, that's a violation that the pool could be, shut down until we understand what the issue is. So that's a serious thing to keep the pool chemicals correctly to make sure the pool stays clear. So the seriousness of that, which you understand,
Yes,
could be followed. Yeah.
absolutely.
Is the pool open 12 months out of the year?
No,
So it's an outdoor
it's an outdoor pool.
pool?
Yeah.
From when to when?
I'm sorry.
When to when? May to?
We have pretty much originally, in the last year, opened it the last week of June through Memorial Day, through Labor Day. And we'll probably keep it open a week or 2 after Labor Day now, and possibly open it up, depending on the weather, on Memorial Day. I mean, it won't be a lot of use. The pool really gets its real activity during the 4th of July, and then the week before Labor Day. Labor Day weekend is dead. I don't think there was hardly anyone in the pool over Labor Day. It was so quiet. And then interspersed during the summer, we have there are a few people come down Memorial Day weekend, and it's not quite that busy, but it's typical. It's atypical of what goes down in the Cape.
Number 18,
Sure.
talking about the 9/11 emergency station, would you tell me a little bit more about that?
There is a requirement that we need to have a telephone set up on the pool. We have been getting away with our pool attendants taking a cordless phone and having it out there with them. Since we're not going to have a pool attendant, we need to set, my thinking is that we need to set up a pull station, so we can get a hold of emergency individuals if we need them.
Don't they have a phone in the day room?
There is a phone in the day room, but I think we need to have access to something right there at the pool.
Right, you need a pool, a phone has to be right at the pool. It's a red phone.
Right.
And it directly goes right to 911 when you pick it up. You don't dial it, it goes direct.
So it's not been set up thus far, but that's one of the first things we're going to do next year.
So, in the event of an emergency, this station should be operated under the direction of a responsible person affecting the report. What does that mean?
It means an adult.
An adult, okay.
Excuse me.
So a child under 16 could not use the pool by himself.
No, not at all. In order to swim, you need 2 individuals anyway, and children under 16 are allowed.
Good.
By themselves.
Director Murphy, so it's our responsibility tonight is to make a decision whether to grant the variance, essentially.
Correct, and add it to the other, similar to the other condominiums that we have.
Any other thoughts from anyone? Anyone want to make a motion here?
I would just make a note for the board that we do have your procedures here, but that I would just update the 2 points in there is number 18, that it would have a red phone emergency phone located poolside directly to 911. And then under the first one, under number 1, the key may not be copied and will be noted, do not duplicate.
Okay.
One per unit.
And then you could resubmit that and then sign it as, I know you're signing your name, but can you sign it as a trustee or with all, how many trustees do you have?
5 of us.
Okay. Is there a chairman of the trustees, or is there, can you sign as a trustee, or would all
Yes.
would all 5 have to sign it, or just one as a?
One of us can do it.
Okay, then you could just put underneath trustee.
Okay.
I move that we accept the variance requested by the Bass River Waterfront Townhouses in light of the precedent set by other condominium-type associations, and that the swimming pool and pool deck operational guidelines and requirements be amended as discussed, number 1 and number 18.
Good, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, all in favor of granting the variance, just raise your hand, please, and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
season
you
out
very
there.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
I'll take care of this.
Yeah. Also make a note that you only have 18 units.
Legally, we've got 19 with
With the lighthouse?
the lighthouse. It's not a usable, it's not occupiable, the way the last variance was written for rental purposes, but
Yeah.
it's occupiable for our staff in the summer if we wanted to put them in there only.
Yeah.
So,
You could just say 18 units plus lighthouse or something like that.
okay, I'll do that.
Want to keep that light going up and down the river there now.
We just put a new cupola on it. They finally replaced it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Murphy, we're up to number 3 here. Discussion of Board of Health and semi-public pool regulations. And we were going to focus on violation, fines / suspensions. I had just asked to put this on the agenda based upon our last meeting where we had a pool there with 7 or 8 violations, and just to take a look out of our current regulations. We had, I guess about 4 years ago, what is it, 2015?
Yes.
Is when we redid the regulations. So I was just curious to get some discussion and thoughts about fines and violations. Last time we decided on a fine, and we just went ahead with that, but just wanted to make sure we're treating everyone equally.
Sure.
That's all. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so the thoughts would be, the fine that was issued was under the Board of Health pool regulation that required the safety personnel, which was adopted under, state law, Chapter 111, Section 31, which allows a fine up to $1,000. So have not had to use a fine in this section in the past. So I think it's a little different than, I know when we looked at, let's say, tobacco, where it has first offense of 300, then 400 with it closed for 7 days, and third one is, 500 and so forth. People don't get like a first offense on this. This is, I'd probably say more seriously than maybe a flavored tobacco just sitting on the counter, nor does this happen as frequently. This is, I want to say, probably is the first time I brought something to the board in 30 years. We might have had one in the past that did not have a safety personnel when we had an incident because the person had taken that night off and was replaced by, they didn't know, by somebody else. Even though they had enough people eligible, that person just hadn't shown up, and then they changed their policy for that. So I think, and the board doesn't have to make a decision tonight, but I think you've already set kind of the bar, so to say, of a violation of a not having a safety personnel is serious, and you've already established it at $500. The other violations that night that had comes under the state code, And should we go in and notice things that that weren't there, like the shepherd's crook, or the chemicals were out of order, or the ring buoy wasn't there, or those type of things, the pool is closed right then. So if our inspector goes out and notices a violation, the pool is closed, and they can't open up until they have that done. And that probably happens, I want to say, a dozen times during the summer, and mainly because of the pool chemicals being out of sync. And either it's a hot day and they're not paying attention 4 times a day and the chlorine is being taken up by the sun, or it's a cloudy day and it's indoor, and all of a sudden everybody from school vacation, instead of 10 people in the pool, they now have 50 people in the pool, so they have to adjust it. So those type of things, if we see a violation, the pool is closed. And that's usually closed for 1 to 3 days till they get that corrected. The violations of the Board of Health regulation of not having the safety personnel on site is separate and I think more serious and more and is different. And then if we do find that, which, like I said, we really haven't found serious enough to bring to the board, I think setting the fine one time at $500 is a good starting point. It does not mean if we had another violation that maybe was thought would be more serious, that you could go up more than 500. I guess you could go down low if it was less, but I think it gives you the flexibility to look at each case individually. I know town council had recommended, well, maybe it would be good to have 3 steps, but people aren't coming in 3 different. There's no second offense that people are coming in within 2 years that, oh, we didn't have our safety personnel again. Well, we're not going to charge you an extra $100 because of that. That's real serious. That I think the board could go up higher to a $1,000 fine. So I think leaving it now for the flexibility, I think the board is covered.
So we would say a minimum of $500.
You could have that as a minimum, but maybe
You were saying that we have the leeway to go up to $1,000.
you go 0 to 1,000.
Whatever
And you could look at each one individually.
But we've set precedent.
You've set precedent to work on.
Right.
So I think that's easier than just saying a minimum 500, because I don't think you need to spell that out in the regulation. I think the regulation is clear because it goes back to what that allows you to go up to $1,000. And like I said, it doesn't come in, again, that often. So I think leaving it now, and we don't have to make a decision tonight, we can just think about it, but I think that would be the best way probably for the board to look at it.
And we would put that into our regulations?
It's already in the regulation, so
This part.
For the amount.
our regulation, where it says, where we adopted under the top, the third line up top, where it's adopted
Right.
under the Mass Law 111, Section 31, if you look when we look that section up,
Right.
it says up to $1,000 fine.
Right.
We don't have to spell that out.
Okay.
It's understood.
Get a copy of that?
It should be in the packet
Oh, we
right
do
here.
have it? Oh, we do have it. It's right here. I'm so
Right.
sorry. I didn't see it
No,
the
no.
first time.
So,
Now I see
there we go. So
sorry.
that allows us, the board, to have that flexibility. I think that's probably more important, because, I mean, this one, the person didn't, besides not having the person there,
The egregious.
the assistant manager didn't know they had that person there, so that was pretty egregious, so you're correct. So I think if you had another one that was just as egregious, you could say, it might be even more than that.
I, for one, like the flexibility.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, too.
Yeah. And I think the message is out there, and it's something that all the pool operators know, and they do know how important it is to have that certificates and the people on. And I mean, that's something that when the inspector fills out there, that's constantly discussed.
So what do we do? Let's say we're doing an inspection and There's not a sign that says no glass containers, okay? So what,
That's usually on a general sign they have that lists about 8 things: no
Right.
swimming alone, no glass
Right.
containers.
but what should we do if that sign's not there? In other words, what happens? You're going to
There
close
would- The pool would be closed.
close,
The
period.
pool would be closed. But most everybody has a sign because they're drilled into the
Right, right.
wall or put on there. We did have one taken down, but they had 2 up, so at least they had one.
And then it's reopened once,
Once they would call us, right.
I think I understand what Hillard's saying. He's saying, they're violating the policy. There should be, other than, oh, you just have to close the pool, and, oh, okay, now it's fixed, right? Is that kind of what you're
A
saying?
little bit, just in town
Yeah.
versus state. I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying about state, which I didn't really appreciate our last meeting. Let's say, pick the one we just talked about, no glass containers. Is that also in the state?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Everything we require is state
Correct,
over and above our safety stuff.
correct.
And there has never been any fine levied for a state violation.
Correct.
Is there a reason why we chose to put signs into the regulations versus something else of these, of the state regulations? Is it just by chance someone did this 30 years ago, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then the board looked at it and said that they're probably the highlights of some of the sign things they just wanted to reiterate. The no swimming alone, no glass containers. Just reiterating the importance of it.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, so the only sort of leeway we have is, in terms of fining and things, is any kind of safety training?
Correct,
Okay, that's the part I think I was unclear on.
Correct.
Now I
Okay.
understand.
correct.
And the state regulations are different than our regulations on that one subject?
Correct. The state does not have regulations about requiring lifeguards. So the board took that step a step further, saying that you have to have a safety personnel unless the variance was granted.
Rather than lifeguards.
Correct.
'Cause we didn't go
Right.
there.
Correct. And not all towns have done that. I
Right.
mean, there's probably not many towns that require lifeguards to be there. I think the only one, others is Barnstable, and they don't require a lifeguard. They just require a swimmer. So that's a little different. But other towns on the Cape have not made a determination of a safety personnel.
Okay. In preparation for tonight, I was just reading it, and I was looking at maybe a possible edit, see what people think on our regulations, and that under safety training program, on the second sentence, whether or not, after it says one staff member, whether we should put in the phrase "with these certifications." See what you think. In other words, and not just a staff member.
Where are you?
So under safety training program,
Oh, I
Right,
see what you're
yeah.
saying,
the
yes.
second line,
Oh, okay, I got it. Yep.
and it says that one staff member be available on the premises.
One
About
certified
Right,
staff member.
yeah,
Or
yes.
okay.
trained
Well,
staff.
the first sentence requires them to have the certifications. So you're already saying each shall have the required and following certifications.
But my point is, you're not saying one of those staff members
Right.
with a
Right.
certificate is going to be present.
Right.
Well, 2 or more staff members of each establishment shall have certification.
That doesn't mean that,
They could be in France for the month.
those 2 could be gone, and the third staff member,
And shall have one on site. I guess it's semantics. I think it's covered, but
I don't think it's the end of the world to
you
add
could say
certified
one
to that.
one of those staff members be available.
If you were taking the argument, if you're arguing this case, that's how I would take it.
well, that's fine. I'm just saying
Of
if
course,
the-
we have 2 people who are
Right.
certified.
Wake me when it's over.
You're mumbling. I didn't hear what you said.
I said, wake me when it's over.
But it says shall be require one staff member be available on premise. I mean, to me, it's clear, but I mean, you could clarify that if you want to open up this to a hearing, and then I guess the question is, do you want to change what's on the
That's
signs?
not changing it. You're
or-
saying,
No.
you're saying that's what it means. We're saying the way it's written, it doesn't say that. All we want to do is say one certified staff member be available, or one of those trained staff members be available. But to be very specific that it's one of the
So where would you like to put that in?
On that second sentence, that one certified staff member? Is that right,
Yeah.
Hillary? Yeah, that one certified staff member be available on the premises.
Okay. Do you want to change anything under signs? Do you want to take that section out because it's all under the state? Or do you want to add to it, or do you want to leave that in?
What do people think? Not all at once.
Well, I mean, I think if it's, I mean, I don't think it hurts being there, personally. I mean, the state regulations are there, whether we write that little piece or not.
Hmm.
Does it give it some more, strengthen the enforcement of it, do you think?
I think it does. We might want to just add 911 phone, emergency phone shall be provided.
Mhm.
I mean, that's probably the big.
But the state requires that, right?
They require all A, B, C, D, E,
Okay. And F.
and the new F.
I have no problem with adding it.
Yeah, emergency phone shall be required, poolside as required by.
Well, we haven't said as required by for these others,
Hmm.
right?
Well, I guess that's what I mean, like, we're just sort of like bullet pointing the big
We're
ones.
kinda
in the
emphasizing,
state- in the
right.
state regulations.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe we should specify that, and signs, we can say state regulations, signs and state regulations. I don't know.
I probably would, because otherwise it sounds as if it's just ours.
Should be on a sign.
You could just say, these are required, signs in parentheses, these are required by state regulations.
Okay. We'll work on that to have it at the
Yeah, put a
next
draft
meeting.
together,
We'll put a
that's all.
draft together for the board to look at. Okay.
Okay.
While we're on pools, you did see in the packet the other condominiums that the board has granted variance to, and it's been, looks like 5 years since the board's probably had them in, so it's probably a good time to have them in just to give the board an update. I don't think they need to come in every year, every other year, but I think every 5 years that they're working on it. We do see their safety report when they do file their applications each year, which they'll be getting ready to do in April, so maybe we have them in again in March and April to give an update of what their safety policies are.
Remind them we're still here.
We're still here, and
Yeah.
we're looking, so.
All right.
We can put that on the same time the board, well, we can look at the draft ahead of time, so.
Okay.
But we'll put that as an upcoming meeting.
You okay with that, everyone?
Sounds great.
No? Okay. All right. So approval of the minutes, that's from November 18th. Everyone take a look at it, I hope. Any,
Well, in light,
Yeah.
though, of what we just talked about on the minutes, we said, that the motion said, in violation of the Board of Health pool.
excuse me, one second, where are you?
I'm on page 2.
Two?
2, under the motion at the bottom,
Okay, thanks.
in motion to find Aiden by Best Western in violation of the Board of Health pool regulations as follows. But these are, and you do have the state code, cited there, but they don't have to be adopted by the boards of health to be, so it's not really a Board of Health regulation.
Correct, but
State Board of
Exception
Health?
number 8.
as we know now, but I think as the discussion at that
Oh,
meeting
okay.
was, that was true statement at the meeting at that time.
Right, okay.
So I think we're okay on
Okay,
that.
okay,
But you are correct.
okay.
And they have paid, I think.
Because my name is on that.
Yes. But you were correct during your motion,
Okay.
based on the
I agree with
information-
Based on the,
based
Not
on
gonna
the
see you in the
information
globe,
you
don't worry
have.
about it.
Mary. I seconded it, so we'll be together.
Oh, the selectmen will just get rid of
Okay.
us.
So anyone make a motion on the minutes, please?
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 18th Yarmouth Board of Health meeting.
A second, please.
Second?
All in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are accepted. Any old and new business?
New business, I put the new person, Mallory Langer, the new assistant director, that will be starting January 6th.
January 6th, very good.
As you notice that she's currently working in Falmouth as the assistant. It's a two-person office. She also has military background, supervision, so I think that will help. She is still active reserve, so she is off 2 weeks a year. So she's already done her, well, this year, 19, so we'll cover during that period of time.
Is she still on the Mashpee Board of Health?
And she's still on the Mashpee Board of Health till she finishes her term out. So she does get to see both sides of an issue, which is interesting.
When is her term up?
I believe it's, I think it's next year. I don't want to say for sure. I think it's in maybe 21. But she's going to look to see, you know, how things go. She does enjoy sitting on it, but she understands that, you know, it could turn into, she's available to come to our meetings, but it's just an extra meeting for her.
The Mashpee one is when she
Correct.
starts here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Yes,
So
very
this
good.
is a move up for her to a bigger office.
Yes.
Bigger
It's a larger health department, even though Falmouth is a larger town and population. They don't have as much health, public health programs. So they don't have a rental program. They don't have a hazardous material program. So, you know, they don't do a lot with human services. So they have a human service committee that does something different. So it's a move up plus more things that we do.
Good.
Even though most of her area will be in the septic area where Amy's was.
But she does have that experience.
Yeah, she
so-
does that. She's a registered sanitarian. She does have the experience working there.
Great.
Anyone else for old and new business of any sort?
Next meeting, I'm recommending January 13th.
As we
Birthday.
discussed, yeah.
Oh.
That's your birthday?
Yes, it
We'll
is.
make note of
We'll have to have
that.
a cake.
Okay.
We'll have 2 septics coming in, 2 businesses that are looking to expand, and we might need to give them a variance on the how large they can expand, especially if sewers are coming through. Can we do something in phases possibly? They really can't wait until town meeting of May because they want to get going. So is there something that we can work with them in the meantime? So.
These are businesses on 28?
Yes, the bowling alley is one of them. Cape Bowl wants to kind of turn into, like at the mall, with a little restaurant with it, like Mashpee, but the mall. They also own the one at the mall.
10 Pin?
Same thing.
The
yeah,
10 Pin unit.
10 Pin. So they
Oh,
want
Ryan, yeah.
Ryan Family's Amusement. So they want to try to see what they can. They have a large septic system that was put in several years ago, but now they want to increase their number of seating, restaurant seating and bar seating. So we're trying to see if there's some middle ground that we can work with in the meantime. Maybe it's larger tankage and monitor the flows and do it in stages if needed.
Okay. Okay, anyone interested in making a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Hey, we made it. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.